Very pleased to be welcoming to the very first time here on Grand Oshkosh, but I know it won't be the last time. Well, maybe, and we'll see how it goes. Our guest tonight is Rebecca Grill. She is the new city manager here in the city of Oshkosh. She's been on the job just a few months, and I think so far she's enjoying it, but we'll find out. So welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you having me.
Pleased to be here. So I know that when you were hired, the city put out a lot of different stuff about you, but not everybody sees things, and not everybody's connected to social media and all that stuff. So can you just kind of give us a snapshot of where you've been with respect to city government and the things you've done?
Sure. I've worked in city government going on 3 decades. I started with the city of Milwaukee. I was there for almost 20 years in different positions, starting with the Housing Authority and the Public Safety Department, and then I moved into the License Division where we processed over 25,000 licenses a year for the city, which is a huge amount.
Licenses like dog licenses, building permits?
Like alcohol licenses, home improvement contractors, taxi cabs, dance studios,
licenses.
All those kind of things. Because I was part of the city clerk's office, so similar to what the clerk's office does here, but on a much larger volume.
Larger scale, yeah.
Yes.
That how many a year?
25,000. When I left, we had taken over doing the health department licenses, so all of the food, the weights and measures, and that type of thing. So it was a pretty intense thing.
I bet. You mentioned weights and measures, and it's a very important job that the Weights and Measures Department does, but I don't think people understand what it even is. But I'll simplify it in respect to gas pumps. When they go out and they want to make sure that consumers are getting what they say they're getting on the pumps. So they go out and inspect the pumps or something? How often do they do that?
They test the pumps to make sure that what it says you're getting, like you said. They also, I believe, it's supposed to be annually or biannually. But when you go and pump your gas, you probably see those stickers on there with the dates and things like that.
People will be looking for those now.
Yeah, right? They also do scales in businesses, so at the grocery stores, so when they're weighing your produce and things like that, to make sure that they're accurate. I don't know if we do this here, but some municipalities, they do timing devices. So at laundromats, to make sure, if you're paying for a certain amount of minutes on the dryer, you're actually getting your money's worth. I don't know enough about what we do for weights and measures if we do that here.
But that's an important thing.
Yes.
Because a lot of people use laundromats still.
All of those things that, you don't necessarily think about, but it protects the consumer, so it is an important job.
It sure is.
Next time when you're pumping gas, and I always turn the mute button off on those annoying commercials.
Oh, can you do that?
Yes.
How do you do that?
It's like the second button down on the right.
Oh, now I'll be watching for that. You guys
I
are all
just
going to
look
be
at the
watching
sticker because it's a hazard of my job.
Because you got the inside scoop on that.
Yeah.
And so you took over all that stuff then? Wow.
So so I was they have a whole division for licenses just due to the volume, and then after that I became the deputy city clerk there. So similar to what clerks do here, except in the city of Milwaukee, they have a separate elections commission. Again, because of the volume.
Yeah.
So when I worked at the city of Milwaukee, when I started, there were 17 council members. They're full-time, and they each had their own full-time assistant.
Wow.
So it was...
That was a drain on the budget.
Yes, it was quite different than working here.
Yeah.
So I, after being there for almost 20 years, I felt like it was probably time to move on. I had just finished my certified public manager program at UW-Madison. It's something that you get as a municipal employee. Yeah. So I went to, applied for the position of city administrator at the city of West Allis, and I was there for 10 years, worked closely with mayor there. We had a great relationship. It's a little, being an administrator is different than being a city manager because you have a mayor there. He was a full-time mayor, so he kind of, way that I would explain it is he did the front of house and I did the back of house. Yeah. And I really enjoyed time there. We did somewhat similar to Oshkosh. We had a lot of economic development things going on. Sure. Because of my clerk experience there, or at Milwaukee, I actually did become the clerk in 2022. Oh boy. So that was quite a challenge to be both of those things. As I was leaving, I was training someone to take over because most people wouldn't be crazy enough to do those two jobs.
They would be pulling their hair out of their head by clumps.
Yes, especially with the way that the elections, the scrutiny and just the challenges that people have. They don't necessarily appreciate what the clerks are going through, what the poll workers are going through. Yeah. And
as a former poll worker here in the city, I say former, I would still do it again, and I'm really glad to see that our clerk reduced it to, she split up the day, because when I was doing it, it was all day long. You were putting up the stuff. You start at like 5:45 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and then the polls open at 7. You do break at some point. We would, at our district, we would do like a potluck thing. Mm-hmm. Everybody would bring something, and then when there was a lull at your station, you'd go and eat. But then you're there sometimes until 9 or 10 at night, depending on the election. I know the night that Trump was first voted in, I think I was there until about 10:30 or so, maybe even 11, and that's a long day. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad our clerk has divided it in half.
That helps a lot. Yeah, people, people that want to volunteer, that's a huge commitment. Yeah, and you have to be on the whole day. I know when during the pandemic we had central count, which is similar to what is here. So in the absentee ballots, they all get counted at one location instead of at each of the polling places. Yeah. And because of the pandemic, we had 16,000 absentee ballots that we had to count, and we just had to grab employees, and we were there till like 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah. And people don't know this, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I got to share this. Bear with me, guys and gals. People don't understand that when they write in on the write-in line, like Daffy Duck or Mickey Mouse, they do not understand what kind of a tizzy that turns everything into.
Right. It causes bad. A lot of extra work, and depending upon whom they're writing in and for what positions, there's a lot of manual work that goes on. Yeah. It would be better if they would just not write anything. Yeah. If they're protesting their vote.
What if they were to, write the name of a legitimate person? Does that still do the same kind of
It depends. So if there's something that's called a registered write-in. So people that they need to register, I think it's like the Friday before the election with the county to be a registered write-in, and then we do count those. Yeah. But sometimes then people, if you're a poll worker, they're marking one that's already there, writing somebody in. You're trying to they're crossing out things. It's sometimes a challenge to determine exactly who they're voting for.
People just don't understand.
Yeah.
So anyway. Yeah. So you left after 30 years down there.
Yes, and I came up here. Well, and I wasn't even really looking for a job. Someone just sent it to me and said, this would be a really good thing for you. I started looking at Oshkosh, and I know I've driven through Oshkosh. I've, mostly on the freeway. Yeah. So my friend went to college here, so I was here sometimes. A little different perspective.
Yes, of course.
But as I looked into it more and more, it was a lot like West Allis, and just a lot of opportunity. There's just a lot more assets, I guess, and amenities here than I had in West Allis. So the water, the museum, the zoo, all those kind of that kind of stuff.
Water park. I'll call it a water park. It's got, rather than using its official name, but there's a lot of stuff here. People just don't always know what there is to do.
Right, and I think we're doing a good job of getting that information out, and I think we're going to continue working on getting more information out.
Yeah, well, that's why I have you on. And look at you. You applied and you came here, and you get to meet me. So how cool is that?
I've been waiting for this for 4 months. I've been waiting.
I'm sure. I'm calling that one as BS. Anyway, so I'm just curious. I know I could have looked this up, and it's public knowledge. What is your salary?
I think I'm at $210.
Okay. The reason I ask is because, we've got a school superintendent who's making a lot more than that, and I think that you have a lot of things to handle as a city manager. So I was just kind of comparing them. So good, thank you for that. Okay, so how has it been? You started in February.
Yeah, February 24th. Yeah. It's really been great. So everyone's been really welcoming and helpful. Obviously, it's not only learning the city, but learning the area too, because I didn't live up here. It was easier for me to move from Milwaukee to West Allis, because you hear about everything.
Sure.
But it's really been great, and I've really been surprised by the amount of engagement and involvement by the community. I really appreciate that, and people really will tell you what they think, but they're willing to help too. Yeah. So I really appreciate that.
Well, good. Well, we're happy that you're here, and
thank you.
It's always nice to kind of help someone new to the job and to the city, to kind of help them learn along the way, because you've got a lot to learn.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And it's not an easy thing to get up to speed so quickly.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear that people are being patient with you and so forth. So I want to talk just for a brief moment or two about, there's a lot of talk because it's coming from Mount Olympus in Washington, D.C., and the king there. Diversity and inclusion, I know that things trickle down, but he can't control what cities do. But we did have a diversity and inclusion, I don't know if it's a commission or a board or whatever it is. Where does that stand in view of what's going on at higher levels of government?
We still have the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. There's no plan right now to change that.
Okay.
I think one of the things that might impact is if we have some federal funding that things change. But we've been trying to pay attention with that with our attorneys and things like that for CDBG, and there hasn't been anything necessarily that's going to impact us at this point that we know of.
The acronym was Community Development Block Grant money, for folks who are unaware of that, and that is money that is funneled down from federal agencies, we'll say, to help develop things in areas that have been, they're just not developed because there may have been a gas station there at once upon a time, and it's too costly to try to get all that stuff out of all that, infrastructure out of the ground and things like that. So the money is used to help cover some things, to develop these areas.
Yeah, it's for the development for businesses, but also a lot for residential properties and things like that.
Sure.
So we have a few developments that I think we're going to talk
We're
about
going
a
to talk
little
about
later.
them. Yeah, we are.
That there's funding being used for that, but we haven't heard of any changes that are going to impact us right now.
Maybe he'll just leave Oshkosh alone. We can only hope. So one of the things I want to talk about is this is something that the Common Council recently did. I know that you as an employee can't comment on it, but we should get the information out there because, we're taping this on the 5th of June. Summer officially starts in a little over 2 weeks or so. And so want to get this out to everyone. The Common Council recently voted, unanimously, by the way, to prohibit all kinds of water sports on the Fox River. So that would include water skiing, wakeboarding, aquaplaning, all of those things. It even includes if you're driving a boat and pulling someone behind you in an inner tube, that is also inclusive within this ordinance. How did this come about? Do you know offhand?
I don't know offhand.
Okay, so I'll tell it.
If you know, that would be great.
I do know. I do know. So this was first brought to the Parks Advisory Board or Advisory Parks Board. I can never get the words right. But it was brought to them because someone in a homeowners association along the Fox River was concerned about erosion from boats speeding along the Fox River. And I think that's a very legitimate concern, and it's not just me. There's proof, there's evidence that things like that do cause additional erosion. And I don't know what is along the Fox River right now. I think it might be I don't think it's a slow no wake, but it certainly is not a no wake. I'm not sure what it is, but instead of going with a slow no wake along the entire river, the advisory board took it to the Common Council and said, it would be better to just eliminate these sports being participated on the Fox River. I did some research. They are wrong in their thinking. My research bared it out. I also spoke with someone at the DNR, but he was not the actual person I needed to speak with, and I haven't been able to connect with that other guy. But the first one I talked with said, I don't think that's correct. I think that boats speeding or going at a faster rate cause more erosion. In any event, we've got a new city ordinance, and do you know what the fines are for this offhand?
Not off the top of my head, but I know that we're going to have signs posted at a lot of the areas, so people should be able to educate themselves.
At the boat launches,
yes.
There will be notices posted. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, because something I learned in doing some research is that our sheriff's department, who normally handles things on the water, they don't have the authority to enforce a city ordinance.
Right.
Which I thought that was interesting, because I always thought, okay, they're above the city because they are the county. So I learned something there. I don't know if it's just certain ordinances or what, but they can't enforce it. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. I mean, I don't know if they're going to pull someone over because they're doing this and just talk to them. I know that they plan to give just warnings in the beginning, and I think that's good. But if you've got, a constant offender, someone who's repeating this time and time again, I don't know what the sheriff's department is going to do. Pull them over and then make them wait for, the Oshkosh Police Department to send someone out. I don't know how.
That's a really good question. That's probably something that we will have to work out.
Yeah, I would say soon, since summer is right around the corner. And there's a lot of people out there with boats already.
Oh yeah.
So
definitely.
So that's important. But just if you live in the city of Oshkosh and along the Fox River, or you do boating along there, just be aware, please, that there is a new ordinance. And for purposes of understanding this, the Fox River is from 900 feet east of the Canadian National Railroad Bridge to about 1,900 feet upstream from the Congress Avenue Bridge. So that would put you right at the mouth of Lake Butamore. So that's a long span, so please just be aware of it. Okay, we want to talk about the State of the City address.
Okay.
This was your first one.
Yes.
And you covered a number of things in there, one of which is the strategic plan. That was kind of the main theme, I think, behind it. So we're going to talk about the city's strategic plan and how it gets updated and that kind of thing. But, was there anything else in the State of the City address that you wanted to focus on besides strategic planning?
Well, I think part of what we talked about, there was some new initiatives. So it was really great that we involved a lot of the department heads to talk about the initiatives.
That was nice.
Anna from the museum, she talked about the Waldwick exhibit and things like that. Sarah, who's our economic development interim director, she was on talking about the development, and then James Robbie was talking about, from Public Works, was talking about the tertiary treatment plants and things like that. I think one of the notable things that I just wanted to highlight was Chief Smith, the police chief, was talking about the homeless outreach team, and that's going to be in Opera House Square. I believe it opened, they were supposed to open on the 1st, so they have people staffing that. Gemma the dog will be there sometimes, so if you need to get a Gemma fix, you can go over there.
Yep, she's a beautiful dog. She succeeded poor Magic after Magic tragically passed away. So what is it called? I wrote it down.
It's a homeless outreach team. So they're going to be working to try to connect people that may be homeless or having some challenges in the downtown area, to connect them with services. They're going to be working with the county social worker, because sometimes people aren't aware of the services that are available to them. Right. So just getting them connected, finding out how we can help as much as possible.
So how will this work then, Rebecca? I mean, will they have something like, I think I read that there's going to be a satellite office down there.
There is. There's an office on the corner. I think it's on the corner of High. Southwest corner of.
Yeah.
So they have an office space. They're one of the property owners worked with us to get that space. So they just got all their furniture in there recently, and they moved in there. I think there's a sergeant assigned, and then another officer, and then, like I said, I think there's a social worker from the county that's going to be there. So
will they basically just kind of watch for people who come into Opera House Square then, or what? How will that be working?
I don't know exactly,
That's
but
a police
I think
department
I
question.
think they're going to be a little more mobile than just waiting for people to come in the
because
square.
I don't think people would come.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to try to be more interactive with people.
Okay, well that's good. But having a satellite office, I mean, that's nice. I guess we know that we're getting to be a big city when we've got a satellite office somewhere else.
Yes. So that was one of the things I wanted to point out. But then we have the Healthy Neighborhoods Associations continuing to grow. We have, I think we're going to talk about murals. There's a lot more murals downtown.
Yeah, we'll talk about those. Healthy Neighborhoods. I have got Liz Last, who's the, I don't know if she's the executive director, but she heads up the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative, and she'll be on, I think, within a month or two.
Okay.
So she's going to talk about that for the whole hour, and I think that's great because, some of us, our neighborhoods, well, I think mine now is, but for the longest time, mine was not even in a healthy neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Because it divides the city up in districts. is basically what it does. And, like you'll have the Sawdust District, and you might have the Fox River District, or, just different names. So I'm glad that we're finally in one of the healthy neighborhoods, but I don't know what our name is yet, so I'll find that out. But yeah, so that's good. And you're right, there are a lot of things about the city that people need to know, and the healthy neighborhoods is another one, for sure. So I know one of the things that you mentioned in the State of the City address was that you guys as city staff are going to be continuing to tell our story to people. What is the story or the messaging that you want to tell, and who will you be telling it to?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Well, I think the story is about the potential and all of the things the city already has. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of amenities already here. And there's a lot of things that the city does and community members and community organizations do. So getting that out to the appropriate audience. When I was in West Dallas, I created a marketing and communication department, and we did a lot of outreach through social media. We had great graphic designers, all that kind of thing. I want to grow. Oshkosh media is great here, building on that to do things and connect people in different ways. I'd also like to get out in the community when I stop having meetings 16 hours a day.
And doing TV shows.
Yes.
Well, so, do you think that the city will be able to, or is there some talk of maybe adding a marketing and communications person to the staff?
I'm working on some different alternatives now.
Okay.
So I would say to be continued.
Okay.
Just starting the 2026 budget process. So looking
Good luck
at
with
different. I can come back in a couple months and talk about that.
Well, that's actually
or
when
cry.
Mark Roloff, the former, former city manager, would come on for sure. Is after the budget process was done, the budget was passed, and he would come on and let people know, here's what we had to cut, here's what we didn't cut, here's how it's going to affect your tax bill.
It's going to be quite the challenge this year. So
why is that?
Last year, part of the when the budget was passed, because of the revaluation of the properties and the shift from commercial to residential, the council made a decisions to use some of our fund balance, kind of like savings account or retirement account money,
like a
to
rainy
put it
day
in
fund.
To put it in personal perspective. But so they used in like $3.5 million. So and that lowered the levy. But what that means is it didn't lower what we spent. It lowered the taxes that went to pay it. So that brings us to this year. So we started with 3, because you can't keep taking from your
Right. Yeah, eventually you won't have it, and that's not what it's really long-term intended for.
Right. It's you don't want to pay your mortgage with credit cards, that kind of thing. So
I've heard of some people doing that, but it just
it's not a good
it
solution.
just gets you in trouble long term.
Yeah. So yes, it will be a challenge. So I might even want to come and talk before they pass it, just to talk, because I think there's going to be some things that people are just going to need to be educated on, and just a lot of the fiscal limitations we have as a city. I'm sure Mark went into some of them, but I think we're going to get into the municipal services payment. There's a lot of things that are somewhat complicated, but they affect the citizens and the taxpayers, and if we just need to spend more time trying to break them down so people can understand, because they don't necessarily, and I want to make sure at least we do our best.
Yeah. Well, that's all you can do. And, we have a community here. I think it is a little unique from a lot of other communities in that we have a lot of aging population. And some whom just simply don't have the internet. If they have the internet, they are sometimes afraid to use it. And possibly with good reason, because there's so many scams out there. But that is one way that you can learn about a lot of things. So it's good that you guys are, utilizing other ways of explaining things to the citizenry. I think that's really important, and I commend you guys for that.
And I think there's other avenues. I mean, we have the library where we can share information, the senior centers, all of that kind of thing. Just using all of those different avenues.
Yeah, I know when I was on the landlord-tenant, I can't even remember it now. It was a board or commission, and one of the ways that we got messaging out to people was Oshkosh Media helped us set up a social media page, and because I was on the committee, and they said, well, you're a writer. Can you write the stuff and post it?
You do this.
Yeah. Here you go, Cheryl. You want to look at that, see if it's something you want to do? So I would go on there and on social media, and I would post what was happening, and when we had pictures, we'd share that. And I think every department, or a lot of them anyway, we're trying to do that, as well as a lot of the boards and commissions. But something happened. I don't know. It kind of fell by the wayside, and so it's nice that you guys are looking at another alternative to hiring someone to at least get the messaging out, because that's important.
It's definitely important.
Yeah. All right, we're going to talk about something that is very important and how that affects our tax bills. I think people will be shocked by, really. I know I was. So you have brought forward the idea that Madison should fully fund 100% of something called the, I think we've got a shot of that. There we go. Municipal Services Payments Program. So we can see there, and I'll read it for folks who are listening on the radio. The purpose of this Municipal Services Payments Program is for the state to make payments to municipalities who provide services such as fire, police, and solid waste, providing those services to state and UW facilities. The intent of the program is to aid in the reduction of local property taxes. Well, it should be funded, you're saying, at 100%. It is not being funded at 100%. No. What percent is it being funded at?
I believe it's 37.4 or 2.
Oh my God, 37. Oh.
So
okay.
The program was started, I believe, in the 70s, and it's really because certain municipalities have more state facilities than others. So those are not on the tax roll. So there's the residents there, the taxpayers there are, supplementing those facilities. In 1981, it was funded at 100%. And then it slowly went down from year to year. I believe 2009 or 2010, it's remained at the same funding.
Yeah.
But the value, the value of the properties or what we should be reimbursed has gone up. So in Oshkosh, we're the third highest municipality that has the most state facilities.
Wow.
And that was shocking to me, but after, obviously, Madison and Milwaukee.
Okay. So here's the interesting thing. If the full funding, if 100% of that funding was returned to the city, the average property tax payer would have their property bills, their property tax bills at the end of the year. It would be reduced by about $72 per tax bill. Now, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Right, because right now we're getting about $1 million, and we should be getting 2.7. And I just want to caution the reducing the tax bill. It would be less. It might not reduce exactly, but it won't increase as much. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
City. The challenge with city services and everything is. But to your point, it impacts each taxpayer $72. So you're supporting the UW facilities here by $72 a year.
And because we've got an aging population, their income is pretty restricted.
Right.
They don't necessarily have a way to, if they're just living on Medicare or Social Security, not Medicare, Social Security, and they are only on Medicare for their insurance, they can't just tell the Social Security Administration, hey, the state of Wisconsin's not funding my community for these state-owned buildings, and, can you give me an increase in my Social Security payment?
That's really not going to work.
That's not going to work, and that'll never happen. So, when your income is locked, you are on a fixed income and can't change that in any way, $72.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at some point, I fear that these really elderly folks who are on a fixed income are going to get taxed out of their homes. That's my greatest fear for them.
It's a huge challenge.
Yeah. And, so when we have things like this happening, or when there are unfunded mandates coming, whether from Madison or out of Washington or, what have you, those things all affect it affects everybody, but it strongly impacts, probably the most, those who are on fixed incomes. And I would not want to see an elderly person in this city get taxed out of their home that they've probably lived in for 50, 60 years. That's just not right.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate the juggling act that you guys have to do, but, anything that will help reduce taxes is a good thing.
Yeah.
And now I just want to be clear about this, because this is we're only talking about buildings here that are like state-owned. Right? I mean, we're not talking about buildings that are nonprofit who also don't pay taxes, like the YMCA, like churches. See, those places also benefit from fire, police, what have you, but they don't pay any taxes.
So
what do we do about them?
So that's a good question. I think a lot of times in municipalities, we try to do special assessments or different type of fees that impact all of the property owners, and then the taxpayers are not just holding the bag for everything. The city has, I think, 30% of the properties here are not on the tax. Are not on the tax.
Oh, not on the tax roll. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's the prisons, it's the mental health facility, it's the university, all of those things. But,
everything's state-owned.
And then the county obviously is doesn't pay taxes. We don't pay taxes to ourselves. So there's a lot of things, and I've been talking with the county exec. He's newer than I am, but he's been around longer.
Yeah, he has.
But we've been talking about different ideas of, how we could maybe collaborate together to, not impact the taxpayer so much. We have our facilities are aging, the counties, the cities, they're not working the way that they did before as far as service delivery and things like that. So I think they're going through a facility study, we're going through one. Is there some way that we can collaborate and really be mindful of the impact of the taxpayers? Because I completely agree with you about, the elderly. When I was younger, I was going through some challenges too, so I felt that $72 was a huge thing.
And I realize it's only a year, but still, for someone who is so tightly strapped when it comes to their income, that's a big deal.
Right.
It's just a big deal. And so what can folks do about this, Rebecca?
At this point, they could contact the local legislators. There is a joint finance committee that puts together the budget after it comes from the governor. I think they might still be taking comments, but I think it would be just really helpful to contact the local legislators and even the governor's office, because it'll come back to him at some point. But they're supposed to be bringing the budget back to him at the end of June. I don't know if that's going to happen.
That's going to happen.
So then everything will just continue the way it currently is funded. But yeah, if they can contact them and just, if there's something that we need people to do more, we'll put a call out.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about this. Our state representative, Lori Palmieri, is going to be on an upcoming show, and we'll talk a little bit more about this with her as well. So contact local lawmakers. The city council or common council has already sent a recommendation, if you will, off to Madison, stating that this should be funded at 100%. And Lori Palmieri was on board with that. There was another state lawmaker too, a couple of them. I'm trying to think who they were.
Kristen.
Elfheim.
Yeah.
Yes, Kristen Elfheim was one, and she's new in her position as well, but doing very well. And wasn't there one other one too? Maybe
Nate.
Well,
yeah.
Whether there was or wasn't.
Those two are supportive of the increase. They don't necessarily think it's going to go to 100%, but
anything bit would help.
Yes, exactly.
So, okay, very good. And I guess we just have to wonder about the churches and the YMCAs and things like that who are also benefiting from these services and not paying taxes.
Yeah, so. I think, the problem in Wisconsin is that we rely so heavily on property taxes to run our governments, and not all states do that.
Really?
Other states rely more on fees and impact costs and sales taxes and things like that. Yeah. And so then it's more of a use base.
Oh, okay. Well,
but then, the fire and police, those are spread out across everyone because, probably by looking at our budget, if you are talking about it, the most costly departments are the public safety and public works.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about something fun.
Great.
Some of those things just kind of, if you're like me, they just kind of give me a headache. They make my head hurt.
They make me wake up every night at 3 in the morning.
Oh, no, don't do that. But if you do, then you've got the blood pressure cuff right there, and you're just...
I just put my dogs then.
Oh, there you go. Well, that helps. That helps. Now, you're not living in Oshkosh yet, right?
No, we live by Menominee Falls right now.
All
so.
Right. And husband and how many kids?
I have 2 kids.
2 kids.
My son is almost 26. He lives in D.C. He went to law school there. So
oh, boy.
He's figuring out what he wants to do with his life.
Well, if he can do something with the White House, that would be wonderful.
I don't know if he's ready for that, but yeah.
That would be a good first challenge, though. Baptism by fire.
Yeah, right.
So he's 26 and...
Yeah, my daughter just turned 15, going on 19 or something.
Yeah, we know how that is.
Yeah, she just finished school. I guess she's a sophomore now. She just finished her freshman year.
Okay.
And then I'm married. My husband owns his own home improvement contracting business, so...
I want to talk to you after the show.
Okay.
Not all night, but just for a little bit.
He might want me to come home at some point tonight.
Well, we can chat on the phone as you're driving. So are you making that commute every day?
Yeah.
Oh, my. Wow.
It's not as bad as people might think for me because I would drive to West Dallas before, and driving through Milwaukee traffic is quite different than getting on 41.
You're right. Okay, we want to talk about the Grand.
Yeah.
You were talking about the assets that we have, and that certainly is one, and it is a really outstanding asset that we are very, very blessed and fortunate to have. But they're going to be doing some major upgrades and renovations. They will be later this year taking on a $10 million capital campaign that they'll be kicking off. They're just talking about it quietly now, and Joe will be here, I believe, in July. Maybe even he might even be on my next show. I don't know. He's coming up though. I've had him booked for a while. So what you're seeing right now is kind of an upgraded version of what it will look like. These are artist renderings. So do you want to talk about it, or should I?
You can go ahead. I can talk about the ownership a little bit more when you're done.
Okay. So if we look at the bottom of the screen, what we're seeing is the entrance on High Avenue. That has been the entrance for the longest period of time. And if you go to the left of that, you'll see in the corner, there's going to be a sign there that says that it's the Grand, or the Opera House, or the Grand. I think they're just called the Grand Oshkosh these days. But there is a parking lot area there that they are going to have to buy because they don't own that. So if you see the covered entrance there, it's the parking lot that is just continuing out from there and going a little bit to the north. So they're going to be purchasing that parking lot so that they will have some ample parking. And then there'll be that covered entrance, and it will be handicap accessible as well. And if you look at the top part of the renderings here, that's a little bit different viewpoint that we're looking at. And then there are some 3 smaller ones on the left-hand side. And that's essentially what it's going to look like. And so if we can move on to, I think we've got some more of these graphics. Let's go back to it. There we go. So that is, I believe, that's going to be where the entrance will be. Is that your understanding? Okay.
From what you were just describing, where the overhang is, yes, that'll be that.
Okay.
It's a pretty unique partnership. The city owns the facility. Yeah. And we are like you said, we're working on acquiring the properties, the parking lots near there. So it's very unique. The city is going to be supporting part of the funding, but the foundation, the Opera House Grand, will be raising funds for the rest of that.
So there'll be the city's kicking in $5 million, and the Grand will match that. So that's part of what the capital campaign will be, and we'll be hearing more about that when Joe comes on. So we'll probably be using these graphics again, and he might be able to get me some more. And so they'll be going out to people in the community too, because every dollar helps, every $5 bill helps, every penny helps to cover this. And one of the things, if anyone has been, I don't know, we can move on to the next slide if we have one. There is no more slides, are no more slides. Okay, well then we'll just look at this one. So one of the things that will also be done is, if anyone has been to the Grand, and if you've not, I encourage you to do so, but when you enter, everything is slightly on a different level. I mean, you may have to take 1 or 2 steps up to get into the theater area itself. You may have to take 1 or 2 steps down to get to the box office. You may have to take 1 or 2 steps up or down, depending on where you are, to get to their lounge area. I mean, it's 1 step up, 2 steps down, this kind of thing. So they're going to level everything out, which will, I think, make a lot of people with mobility issues happy, because sometimes just 1 step is enough to say, oh, my aching back, I can't deal with this. but and they are going to expand, I believe, the lounge area also. But we'll be talking to, and some of it will actually be like part of a balcony on the outside.
Yes.
So, okay, very good. So that's that. So when you start hearing about the Grand, you can say that you heard about it here and, donate whatever you'd like to donate.
And I just want to insert a little bit. They're going to be partnering with Music on Main this summer and providing the bar for that. So we're having the street closed between that and
nice.
So
nice.
I'm sure people might be able to peek in or go in during that time.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful facility, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is. And there's so much history there.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it's had its renovations over the years, but this is a new one, and it's time.
Yeah,
it's probably
they say
beyond
it's
time.
haunted. So
I've heard that for years, and there are different, like there is a ghost of a dog. I believe the dog is, can't remember now if the ghost of the dog is in the basement or in the upper seats, but it's either a person or the dog who literally, the ghost of it sits on one of the seats. Ooh, those eyes are getting big. Look at that.
I'm not a ghost person.
And then there's one down in the basement. It's Joe can tell you about them.
He did a little bit. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And get him to take you on a tour down there. Nothing will attack you, I'm sure. So, okay, we want to talk about some infrastructure things here real quickly. One of the things, the water filtration plant is doing a liquid oxygen and ozone equipment replacement. What is that, and how much is that costing, if you know?
I don't know the replacement costs off the top of my head, but the ozone, that's how we clean the water.
Okay.
So sometimes our municipalities would use chlorine and things like that. Primarily, we'd use the ozone to clean.
Oh, is that part of what they were saying? You may smell the water a little? Okay.
So that's exactly what that was.
So that's been undergoing for a little bit.
Yeah, so I believe that we've completed that at this point.
Okay, so that's done.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And then another one that you had mentioned was the continuation of the Sawyer Creek Rural 2 Detention Basin construction. That's a mouthful that I said. Where is that exactly?
Did I mention this? When did I mention this?
I don't know. It came up on the screen when I was looking at the. So what you're telling me is somebody slipped that in there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I can find out, but I don't know off the top of my head right now.
Well, you're new.
I'll use that
I'll
right
put
now.
a question mark by that one. And then you did reference some street construction projects.
Yes.
Wagoo, Central, Nebraska, and Furnow. So are those the only streets that are going to be under construction this city or this summer?
Did you mention Nebraska? You mentioned Nebraska.
I did.
Yeah. Those are the only 4 that I'm aware of, but we do have a construction map that people can go on the website and see the different constructions that going on, and then they can also sign up for notifications about the projects that we're having.
Okay. And we've been putting the website address up. I'm sure we have, but in case you are unaware of what the city's website is, it's oshkoshwi.gov. So oshkoshwi.gov. Okay, very good.
I did see my note about Sawyer, but I don't have any more information.
Okay. We'll let that go. But there's something with Sawyer Creek.
Yes.
Okay, boy, my time is running out. I can't even believe that this has happened. I've been noticing a lot of potholes in the city, and I don't expect Rebecca to get out there with, some asphalt and shovels to fix them. But
the governor was out there last week.
Oh, fixing one?
Yes.
Good. He should come back and fix some more. So, but you can contact folks at the city by calling them. You can go online and email them. There's also a app that the city has had for a number of years now. It's called Connect Oshkosh, and just go to your app store, wherever you get your apps, and download it. You can report so many things on there. And I will just tell you up front that if you are able to take a picture whatever you're talking about, that helps them immensely. So, please, help the city, help all of us, and report things like that you're seeing. I will just say real quickly that there is on Washington Avenue, across from the library where Sawyer and Harris are, the Lions, there is being constructed the William Waters Plaza gazebo. Do you know when that will be done, or?
I just had some dialogue about that last week.
Are we looking at sometime this summer yet?
I believe it is, but I don't know 100%.
Okay. Again, you're new. I'll put a question mark by that
Okay.
one. Now, do you know about this? The former Pioneer Inn on Keeney. Oh, there's the gazebo right there. Isn't that pretty? I love it.
It's beautiful.
I love it. Pioneer Inn, the former Pioneer Inn, is on what's called Keeney Island. That's those of us who have been here all our lives, for the most part, we know what Keeney Island is. But the Pioneer Inn structure itself has been raised. Do you know, is there any plan to reconstruct anything there yet, or because there hasn't been for years?
I believe that the developer's looking into something now.
Great. That'll be great. All right, Mill on Main. We've got some pictures of this, and we're going to zip through these. Tell us about this.
Sure, it's a mixed-use apartment complex and commercial center, so there's a variety of apartments, duplexes, that kind of thing. There's different phases. Phase 1 will be done in 2026. Once it's completed, there'll be over 300 housing units.
When the whole project's completed, right?
But the first phase will be a 4-story apartment building with 100 units. Underground parking.
Let's hold this photo right now or this image for just a little bit. So what people are looking at there is the ground floor, which is denoted in white. That will be mixed use. That will be commercial, what have you. And then the remaining 4 floors will be apartments. There will be, as you can see, there's a parking lot there. And there will be, as Rebecca said, some underground parking. It's at the end of 7th Street, and it will be done in 3 phases.
And they have a clubhouse. I think you can probably see that in the middle, a pool.
Is that what's being built right now?
Pickleball courts and a dog park.
Okay. Yeah, because there's a little building off by itself that's being constructed right now. And I'm assuming that that's it. I don't even believe this. We're down to less than a minute.
Wow. I'll have to come back again.
Yeah, can I get you back on soon? Because there's so much more that we wanted to talk about. But thanks for being here. This was a fun hour, and I hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
You smiled and laughed a lot, so I got to believe you liked it. So thank you to Rebecca, and we will be having her back soon, probably a couple times yet this year. And of course, thanks to my crew, and most of all, thanks to you. You're the one that we do this for. So, we'll see you next time, and until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.